All right, what's up, book nerds? Eric Werlin here with Adam Lestuka. How you doing today?
I'm really good, thank you. How are you?
Doing all right. Tired, but that's what coffee is for here at Comic-Con. Tell us a little bit about what it is you do.
I'm a film and television composer. I primarily work on science fiction shows now. I think that's about it. I write a lot of music under very rigorous schedules, and
Now, when you say rigorous schedules, like what are we talking? Like you have to get things out within a couple of days, a couple of weeks, a couple of hours, maybe minutes?
depending on the format of the show, most shows that I work on are going towards a 10-episode structure. You have about 7 days total, so there's about, you spot the show, you have maybe about 3.5 or 4 days of actual writing, then there's the technical admin, the delivery, and then a mix day, and it runs on a 7-day cycle. And depending on the show, like 44-minute shows can sometimes have 40 minutes of music, so you're in the trenches most of the time.
So not a lot of downtime in that type of situation. It's pretty much just go, 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 no stopping.
Yeah, pretty much. I describe it as a marathon that you have to sprint. You have to it runs a very long time because you think you have 10 shows spanning over, a week each. It's a long stretch.
That is a lot of work, and I'm sure the time just goes by quick. And instead of being like, oh, I got time, it's like, oh, it's been 4 days. I have, only a couple of days left. I need to finish this.
Yeah, you have to keep quotas, and you have to have a very rigorous systems implemented, and you have to be really disciplined, I think, overall, because it's pretty rare that you're only ever working on one show, so it's kind of a feast or famine thing. So you go through seasonal cycles where there'll be like 2 or 3 shows to balance at once, and you have to find every possible shortcut you can to keep the music still good.
Wow. So you work on like multiple shows simultaneously. On average, how many shows at a time would you say you work on? Like you're juggling at once.
I would say one is a luxury. Like you feel like if you're just balancing one show, it's nice. But usually there's about, you don't ever want to let anyone know the full breadth of what you're actually working on and what you're capable of doing under time constraints. But usually 2 or 3 is a good balance. Like if you can kind of projects and things like that, it's nice to. It feels like a good rhythm when you jump from project to project at that pace. But
I can see that. So walk us through kind of what your process would be when do they give you like the entire TV show, or do they say like, hey, we need like, it to feel like this for this duration of time, and you don't get to see the video at all? Like, what's the process of like doing, composing the music and all that for these TV shows?
it really varies quite dramatically based on when you're hired in the process. Like on Travelers, for instance, I was hired before the scripts were fully written, so I got a really rare opportunity to really build musical concepts before I had seen the show, before it had gone to picture, before I didn't even know what the show was going to look like, but I got to build like conceptual albums of it. But I won't start a show until it's locked and finished. So you get it, you sit down and do what's called spotting. So you'll kind of talk with the producers and directors about what the intent is. But one thing that's unique about Travelers is Brad and I don't spot the show anymore, and I know that sounds pretty absurd to a lot of other composers, and it's frightening to sort of face that, but he kind of has this implicit trust in me, and because we built the sound of the show together, it became very collaborative to the point that what I sort of see for the show is what he sees as well. So it's frightening, but...
But that's great that you guys both have, the same vision for the show, so it must flow so well.
Sorry. Looking back at the beginning of the process, how much time I spent, which is rare to have that much time to build it, we just developed it and got on the same page. So it saves so much time now, basically. It was a good investment, I think.
Sounds like it. When it comes to composing for a TV show, what's the process like? How tricky is it? Because, like you said, for Travelers, I'm assuming that's a sci-fi type show. How do you go about keeping it in the sci-fi realm, but not making the soundtrack and everything sound like every other sci-fi, time traveling TV show? Like, how do you make it unique but still feel like it fits the genre?
Well, I think production skills are something that are really, really inherent flexibility. It's so necessary to have like just next level production skills and to be able to work really quickly. But like what you're saying, each show sort of needs its own voice. It can't just sound like it's slathered with the music of another show. It can't be copying something. On Travelers, the idea that I had to keep it interesting was because it's a time travel based show, we're in the current day and we don't really know what the future looks like, but we have an idea. It's a bunch of people from all over the world crammed into tiny little shelters, and they're it's just the last existence of the human race. And I thought, just as an experiment, what it would be like if these people from everywhere came together and they had like instruments, but they had no history, no understanding of what the culture was. So I play a lot of different instruments, and I went out instrument shopping and I bought a bunch of stuff that I didn't know what it was. I didn't know how to play it, and I didn't have any concept of how it should be properly played. And I used that as my source to develop just the character sound of the show and to kind of build the universe out a little. So I did a lot of prepared instruments. So I take components of other instruments and utilize them in unconventional ways on other things to sort of capture sounds that I guess the word I could use is almost alien but still familiar. Like
Yeah.
it's so when you hear the show, it'll have these little things that just kind of draw you in and perk your ears up just enough to not pull you out of it, but to keep your attention going and to sort of be the voice of the universe in that show.
Well, that sounds so awesome because obviously, the sound when done well and done properly, like it's so much. It adds so much to a TV show or whatever it is you're watching. So the fact that you're creating noises for instruments that you don't know how, like that's brilliant. Like I would never think to be, cause, to go out there and just be like, that looks cool. I don't know how it works, but we're gonna use that for a sound because you have to create sounds that you're like, how am I gonna make something that no one's ever seen before? What's that gonna sound
Well,
like?
they have to be very emotionally evocative, and if an instrument can help dictate that, if you can make an instrument unique enough that it's the sound of it can trigger an emotional response, that's where to readdress the production technique that you have to have. If you have a good comprehension of sound design and how to implement that, good sounds themselves have an emotional response the same way good music does. So to complement those two and to work with them together, combined with the instrument textures, like you just have to wear a lot of hats in order to be very efficient at it, I think.
Now, this has just popped in my head. I gotta ask: of all these weird instruments you got, have you actually learned to play any of them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, generally, I'm quite disciplined about, like, I use my music and my exploration to sort of learn more about cultures and different people. So I really like researching music from all around the world, and I love learning the theory and the composition and the performance and just absorbing all of it. It's fascinating to me that there's so much to be learned and appreciated, and it's kind of a gateway into learning about other people. So learning the instruments has been, there are some that I've tried that I just can't play to save my life, but a lot of the stuff it's just a lifelong exploration. Like I have a really vast collection of some very strange things now.
I can only imagine. What's either your most favorite show you've gotten to compose for, or if you can't answer that because there's so many, I'm sure, and each one's different. What's been like your most difficult or like biggest challenge when it comes to like what's been your biggest challenge on a TV show?
Well, recently, this is actually not a TV show. I started to collaborate with an old friend from high school on an installation piece, like a art installation piece that is a 5x7 grid of light projected from the ceiling down, and each separate light has a proximity-based trigger. So if you lift your hand up, it increases the volume, you pull it down. And then each grid, basically I had to rethink how to compose a piece of music where you walk through the grid and it triggers a loop of this unique piece. So when you're in it with multiple people, you're essentially the composer in a way. So it's this entirely organic piece, but I had to think of a way to create a piece of music where there's 35 separate elements potentially occurring at once, but it still sounds musical if there's only one or two elements going through it. So you have to rethink the like when we're scoring TV, it's all about the viewer experience, their immersion, keeping them involved. And the musical component of that is like a narration.
Yeah.
You know, like you're a subliminal narrator of the show. But when you're thinking of music in this, now your audience is kind of interacting in a way that, you know, they get to play with it and do it. You have to think like there's so many variables and so many possibilities in it that I still don't know if it's going to work, you know?
So nothing challenging at all.
Not at all, just flipping everything that I thought I knew about composition on its head.
Turning it all upside down and kind of thinking how to make music in a totally new way.
Yeah.
What projects do you have coming up? Do you have anything that you can talk about?
Well, Travelers, I'll be putting out the season 2 soundtrack with Lakeshore Records. Not a certain release date, hopefully in the next couple months, I think. Travelers season 3 is in the works right now, and then I just finished an album of my own material, kind of like a sci-fi outer space adventures of electronic music and really aggressive kind of stuff that you couldn't really do on a TV show or in that platform. So it's very sound design oriented and just something that I had on the back burner for a while that I thought I better finish up.
Nice.
So,
Well, thank you for taking the time to talk with us, and good luck with all your TV shows and all your projects and everything.
awesome. Thank you very much.
So thank you.
Hi, my name's Adam Lestuka. I'm the composer for the Netflix series Travelers, and that's Turning the Page with Gene Booknerd.